Yeah.
Well, thanks for everyone for coming. This is, I think, the first year in like 15 years that I didn't actually go to CES. So I get to be the moderator, though I do see a lot of this stuff. But these three actually trolled the halls and the conference rooms and I guess a lot of Wynn suites, I'm sure.
Or one Wynn suite.
Sure, and other places that we won't talk about. And you know, a lot of big themes coming out of CES this year, certainly connected cars, wearables, virtual reality, drones. You know, certainly television was a big, or the idea of television was a big topic. So we're just going to jump right in. And let me start with virtual reality. You're going to see some of it downstairs, and many of you have played with the Oculus platform before. John, I want to start with you. You know, virtual reality is, I've been playing a lot with it in the last year, and it really is one of those moments, I think, technology-wise, that is sort of a monolith. It's one of those moments the same way that a TiVo and an iPod were, and you have these great experiences, these immersive experiences where you have to remind yourself that it's not real. What did you see, you know, VR-wise that you like there?
Well, I didn't get a chance to see the Martian or the LeBron things, which are downstairs.
Yes.
So I'll make a plug.
And I did get to see the Martian before.
Yeah, which
CES.
you can talk about
Yeah.
the Martian. But I did see, and this, you know, a little bit serious, the Syrian refugee camp, Chris Milk's film in the Syrian refugee camp. And it was extraordinary. I mean, you know, it does really pull you in a way that nothing else I've experienced has. And you kind of get the point, you know, you get the point beyond gaming, right? It really takes you to a whole different place. And you know, so to me, and I don't know other people's view, but to me, it's only a question of time, right? How fast is the adoption going to be? Will the price points work? Will you know, the great works like that, content, fill it out quickly enough? But it's not an if, it's a when. And I feel very differently about it. And I don't, again, I'd love to hear other people's views than 3D, which was kind of never really got there. You know, I think this is something that gets there.
So Jessica, you know, we've talked a little bit about this, but what's your feeling on where VR is and what you see? And are you a believer, or are you still on the edge?
I'm a little more bearish. I mean, I think that the technology is amazing. I think the next upcoming versions that I've used that have hands that you can use as well and play ping pong are very cool. But I think we're a ways off for this being really a complement or part of the viewing and media experience. And even the studios today, like Milk, that are experimenting with this, it's bite-sized experiments. And if you talk to people who are on those projects, I get the sense they're doing a lot for sort of PR at this phase. And so it's not to believe that I don't think there is a future where we'll be using we'll be using VR. But it's just so early, and sometimes we say it's early, but I think this is one where we really should start thinking of it as something that we're going to see in demo booths from a perspective of media. I think gaming might be a little bit different, might be further along, but you know, I was talking to a director who was thinking of one of these companion experiences in VR, and I think companion experiences are also hard too, right? In TV, those haven't really taken off, and this person was saying it's hard. They're at the point where they have an idea that they want a person who's running, and then they realize, well, that wouldn't work. How would that work? And so I think that's the phase where we're at. So I'm not excited.
I mean, I will split the difference between the two of you and say that I do believe it's not an if but when, but I am bearish on the when. I think when is further out. What I thought was interesting from CES was hearing people like Facebook talk about how much they're investing in it now, knowing that it won't be there until 5 years,
well, they have no
10
choice
years.
too, right? I mean, their bet is that on the technology, and they know, and it's so unusual to see them even investing in content, right?
Well, but it's not just investing in content. Like they did have a choice before they bought Oculus, then they bought it making a bet. So they were making a choice at that point. But I actually think it's not if but when, but longer for when VR comes around because of the challenges, which is where does the crew go? Where does the person with the boom mic go? Like there's these things that you barely even think about. But I actually think, where I'll hedge that is, I actually think that the companion experiences is the biggest opportunity right now. So actually, wasn't even at this CES, so it's probably not allowed, but you know, it was actually at South by 2 years ago. I did a 5-minute experience with the wall from Game of Thrones. And it was just this amazing thing, fully immersive. It had this experience. Now, I watch Game of Thrones on a very nice 2D television that you saw lots of them at CES. But every time I watch it, I feel like I've been there before. And I think that this ability to basically allow fans to sample an experience. So imagine you could be in Lucius Lyon's. I have to mention Empire at least 3 times in every panel, ever since Fox bought my company. I'm sorry, guys, but you got 2 more after this. But imagine you could experience it, and then you watch the show. Like it is emotive. Like you were talking about with Chris Milk's The Refugee Camp. I got to do that one as well. So I think that's a big deal. So I think it'll take a long time to get to full long-form storytelling. I was encouraged by the number of people that are investing in it right now, because I think it means we'll see more of it. And then the last thing I'll say is the first 2 things that will hit, gaming, and then potentially navigation of information systems through VR. So not storytelling, but just a simple version, VR, and navigating your feed on Facebook.
And AR too, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm not going to modify my statement. I'm more bullish than you guys. But I did have an eye-opening experience for me. I had not seen this form of AR, augmented reality, that I saw in a private
So just for the room for everybody, what exactly is augmented reality?
Yeah, so augmented reality, you wear your goggles and you're still looking at, say, the room. I could still see everybody here, but something's being overlaid onto that. Right, so you're all still visible, but I'm still able to see you. And this could be, for example, used in a car display. There's one example. You may have heard of Magic Leap or HoloLens by Microsoft. This was another system that I saw. And it fascinated me in a couple of ways. One is you could call up web pages and literally do the Minority Report thing, start moving them around like this. And it did register your hands. It had a sensor for hands. You could take a building, if you were an architect as part of the demo, and you could pull it apart like floor by floor and expand the floors and keep going deeper into it, and the same thing with machinery. And it was really, it glitched a little bit, but it also came close to working. And so the thing that really, that's the way these things are, right? But what it did for me is I always thought, previous to that I thought augmented reality was a step along the way to VR, virtual reality, that VR was the big category. And this kind of I'm still processing, but maybe kind of made me think about the switch, that augmented reality may be the bigger category because you can do it while you're still seeing other things in the real world. And then someday Samsung will make for us those goggles, and then you'll just pull down the VR part of them when you want to go full VR, and you'll flip it up when you're back in the AR world. Now, I don't think that's tomorrow morning, unless Samsung is going to tell us different. But someday you can see that being it. And so to me, it kind of flipped it a little bit. And so one of the big takeaways from the show for me was AR might actually be the broader, larger category, and VR, I'm not going to call it a subset, but is a case in that.
My take on VR is I do agree with Jessica that there is still a long lead in terms of this technology. You'll see The Martian downstairs, which, if you have a moment, please take some time. I went over to a place called the Fox Innovation Lab in December and saw basically the ending of the project. So I was able to demo the entire Martian a couple of times. And you have a bulky headset, you've got the best audio you can possibly get in this environment, and they had me on this $8,000 chair that moved around while I was driving. And put all that stuff aside, the overall experience was groundbreaking. I mean, it really was. I mean, when you watch Ridley Scott's film, you are in an environment, they make you feel like you're in a habitat on Mars. And one of the things that I've been worried about with the film studios and television companies is that when a new technology comes on like this, like 3D, they try to put everything through it. And I don't know that we're going to see a 2-hour narrative. One of the things that is unique about VR is that you have to constantly remind yourself that it's not actually happening. I've probably done the wrong thing and put the goggles on my 6-year-old niece, watching Cirque du Soleil or The Lion King, and it freaks her out. And one of the things I noticed early on,
you don't let that stop you, though, do you?
Well, when her mom says no, I stop. And they were advanced children. But one of the key things is that when you are in those goggles, you feel like you're in control. And one of the things that filmmakers are going to have to deal with is that in film, the in control means the point of view of the director. You're seeing what the director wants you to see. So I was playing with an early demo from a company called Jaunt, which I was on stage with Paul McCartney, and I was able to see an entire stadium worth of people and walk around and see what was going on in the concert. But the minute they started editing and taking me away from the control that I had, I was taken out of the VR. But The Martian is really a unique experience where you're in these multiple situations that Matt Damon was in the movie. You can actually pick things up and toss them around at zero gravity, What it is missing, like you'll see with your Apple Watch, is haptic feedback, where you would feel things. And I think that's the next sort of evolution of virtual reality. Jessica and Jon mentioned a little bit about it, where you're starting to see joysticks and handles that come with these sets. And if you remember in Star Wars, when Luke was sort of learning how to use the lightsaber and was practicing that, there are demos like that. Our friend Greg Clayman, we saw he played ping pong with them, so that you actually see the other person inside the game, you see them swinging, and you actually feel the ball. These are unique things, and I think they make you feel more. And specifically to the Syrian refugee camp, which I had seen last year at Sundance, while Oculus is focused on gaming, and I think a lot of the developers are, I think the most unique experiences may come in places like journalism, where you're going to feel an empathy that you would not feel through the television screen, where you can switch the channel, where you only get a view of where the camera is. And walking through a Syrian refugee camp and seeing squalor and seeing disease and seeing suffering, it brings you to a different level of empathy, and that could be misused. But I am very, very bullish on VR, and not to mention all the other areas like medicine and travel that'll impact. But you'll see it mostly in gaming. So let's talk about another thing. So one of the things that we see at CES every year is everybody wants to be the platform, and what a platform is sort of changing. And while I'm sure it was in a lot of different areas. What I had seen and what I have read about, Amazon was integrated everywhere. Yeah. So Jon, you and I talked about this a little. What does it mean to be a platform these days, and what does that mean for CES, and who are the companies that are trying to be the platforms?
Yeah, I think platform wars is kind of maybe the big game out there. And to use the Lord of the Rings analogy, does it end up as one ring to rule them all, right? One OS to rule them all.
And online, that usually is the case. There's usually
there's usually a big winner. And so obviously there's iOS and there's Android and Samsung's ties in, and a few others out there. But the sneak one was Amazon, and I don't know if it was even designed, because does everybody know what Echo and Alexa is inside of Echo, this crowd?
Just explain quickly.
So Echo is a speaker that you talk to, that Amazon makes. It's a smart speaker, and it's sort of Siri-like in the sense of you can talk to it, and it will then do things. And a lot of manufacturers, OEMs and so on, have just started using it. Amazon, I don't know how much of a marketing effort they've mounted, but there's a lot of people just using it so that for their alarm system in a smart home or things that compete with Nest. And many other things are now just adopting this. So it's becoming a platform.
Jessica, was it? I mean, I don't think that Amazon had presence at the.
No, they don't.
No, I think, and I don't think they've been pushing the Echo, which. My favorite device I bought last year, hands down. Just
what do you use it for? I'm curious.
So I use it to wake me up in the morning. I ask it what's going on in the world. It gives me NPR headlines, weather. My husband, who is a developer, programmer, has hacked it, so it integrates with other stuff. So I think it, I'm not exactly, well, it sometimes integrates with other stuff, but I think it's classic Amazon, right? Because one of the things that's so fascinating about Amazon, right, is every sort of sneak attacks into, you've got Google and Nest and all this big play, and it's early, but it's sneaky.
Right, they're coming from a total different direction.
Yeah, but I think the thing that, to answer your question, Jason, about platforms, it's one thing to say you're a platform because it's sexy, but I think we haven't seen the sort of critical flocking of developers and business models around these platforms, right? So you can talk about drones as a platform. You can talk about home automation as a platform.
I like that only right now and only just after CES and being in Silicon Valley can we say platform and sexy. It's like we've really tied those
out
two
on the
things
West
together.
Coast, we talk about those things. That, iOS is a very sexy.
But Under Armour
platform,
wants to be a platform with its shirts, literally, right? And that you can integrate various devices, their own and others, with the shirts.
I mean, it's almost like saying, don't judge us based on a business based on our own product.
Right.
Because we're not going to make one of those.
It's hard because like the Echo, I think the voice, so there was a lot of voice at CES. There was a lot of voice activated thing. The new update for iOS for Siri, Eddie showed off that like when it's in your pocket and you say, hey Siri, it won't wake up, and you pick it up and you say, hey Siri, and it does. for the business implications and for navigation, like what are you going to watch today on television? What are you going to read? What are you going to order? Where are you going to order from? Everyone wants to be the platform because then they get to be the gatekeeper to decide, oh, where should we route that order? Where should we send that viewer? So everyone wants to be the OS layer.
Right.
And so I think nailing voice is a big deal because you can imagine the moment you think that you want to go shopping is not the moment you feel like going shopping. The moment you remember, oh, I need to get milk, is not the moment you feel like buying milk.
So are we looking at a household in the future that's almost like the real world version of online chat? Like if you have a household of 3 kids and 2 adults that everyone's talking but not to each other, they're talking to the machine?
Yeah. I actually found that funny in the video, the Cronkite video. Everything we've obviously quite surpassed where he thought we were going to be in 2000, except for we still can't watch full-length movies at home while they're in the theater.
Well, as we know, technology is cyclical, so knobs are coming back.
Yeah. They really are.
So if how do you become the platform that wins without being a mobile platform? So we know about Android, we know about iOS. Obviously there's a battle right there, but I mean, is anyone else going to have a platform to speak of?
I think Samsung's making a bet on the TV. They're making a significant bet on the TV as the hub of your platform, and obviously
is that crazy?
Well, first of all, they obviously have a big mobile business too.
Sure.
Let me just try to explain it first, and then think whether I want to say how crazy it is or not. So what they have is on the screen, literally, instead of there being multiple inputs that you have to switch between with a remote control and all that kind of stuff, it's all on the screen, right? So you can have Netflix and your DVR and whatever else you have, and cable and so on, all on one surface, so to speak, one screen surface. So the navigation is now much simplified. And they're introducing these smart home things. I actually was impressed by the refrigerator, the Samsung refrigerator. It's actually cool. We can talk about it if you want.
The refrigerator is supposed to be.
It's kind of cool, and you do get milk when you want.
Let me shoot down the idea that the Samsung refrigerator is cool, which is basically a tablet on the right door of the Samsung refrigerator that if you're looking to see what's in the refrigerator, you actually can't touch. Because when you open up the door, now the panel has been wiped away.
Yeah. I obviously like gadgets more than these guys, but it mirrors your TV if you want, so there's no reason to miss the next play in a football game while Joe gets his next beer.
That's definitely our biggest problem.
And
all got him.
And if you want to order from Fresh Direct right off the screen, it's a couple of touches right off the screen. So when you realize your milk is out, and this is one I think is a little bit of a much. It has internal cameras. So if you're at the store and you want to know what's in your refrigerator, did you actually have the milk or not? You can see what's inside your refrigerator.
I do remember. It was 4 years ago. Pandora in the fridge was like the funniest thing at CES. This will be.
Anyway, I was trying to talk about TV as well.
But you're the one who went sidetracked.
I know.
Wait a second. Back to TV because
you wander to the right, and then it's like, guys, seriously.
For any of us that have younger people working for us, that we have kids or nieces, or everyone is on their phone.
Right.
So how is Samsung planning to make the TV the hub?
And part of that, because the platform that matters on the phone isn't just the OS, it's messaging, right? And so, just Samsung's answer to that.
Well, wait, hold on.
I don't know how I got to be the Samsung spokesperson.
I'm more curious.
You're defending their TV as a hub strategy.
I'm trying, because look, I actually believe the phone wins. I believe whatever wins, the phone wins. That one of the big changes, we used to talk about the battle for the living room, we talked about it a little bit last year. I don't think it works that way. I think it's the phone. And it also goes to the car, right? Because I think the car is going to be an extension of whatever your personal platforms are, right? It's not going to be the other way around. I think you're actually going to buy a car. If Ford doesn't offer you the OS that the rest of your life is attached to, you're not going to buy a Ford, and unless there's some other overwhelming circumstance. And that's a huge sea change. That is a big change that's coming.
Meaning you would technically pick your car for the operating system.
Yep, I think that's where we're going.
So you pick your computers and your phones for your operating systems. I mean, look, the biggest problem, like this is the thing. I have a Samsung phone and I love it. It runs Android. I have a Samsung TV and I don't use the Smart Hub because there's six, everyone's trying to compete. And so I've got an Xbox. I have an Xbox and an Apple TV and a Samsung Smart TV. And I can't decide which one to log into Netflix on half the time. And they're all redoubling each other's efforts. So that to me, every year we go to CES, and I'm hoping to see someone pull ahead and just make up my mind for me.
Let's go back to the One Ring analogy, right? At the end of the day, does it end up being just one thing you buy into?
Today on Facebook, I saw Jessica's husband had a picture of a cab driver mounted tablet in his cab with Facebook Messenger on it. which probably wasn't that safe to begin with.
Probably not. But it's the services too. So I actually think that it's who has leverage, right? If you're a Netflix, you're going to be in every car, right? I mean, you have enough leverage to be across every platform. So I think it's looking for those services, and Facebook would want to be on every platform, right? So I think it's hard to see how this does, who the consolidators are, because for so many players, they just want to be in every place. And so I think you see the new platforms come along when there's some sort of game-changing play. I think if you can win in voice, you could win, but Siri's pretty good, Amazon's pretty good, so maybe that will get commoditized too, and then it'll be something else that will win.
And I'll say, because I don't know if you'd want to be quoted on this, I'll just say a very, very prominent VC, a very large VC, said he'll give it a certain number of years before the television on the wall is a very beautiful, gorgeous piece of what he calls dumb glass, but I would just say, smart glass in terms of that it's connected to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, because you're carrying a computer around in your pocket. I mean,
yeah, I will say, we could switch now to screens. I mean, the thing that blew me away more than anything else of the stuff that I see, because obviously you see OLEDs and every year I just bought 2 more television sets, and then 2 weeks later I go to read about CES and I'm already out of date. Panasonic had a see-through television screen, unlike anything I've ever seen a demo of before, where not only will it go blank, a dumb piece of glass, so you could see whatever's behind it. It could be the view outside your house, it could be what's on your shelf, but also it's touchscreen, so everything else in the house is working from it. I mean, what did we see in sort of any sort of TV screen innovations? To me, that was a very unique thing where you can start to see art, television, and navigation of the home and control of the home happen at a screen level, even though I still think phone wins. Did you guys see the Panasonic screen? Or
I saw Panasonic, which you described. Also, to mention another company, LG had some really interesting stuff. You may have seen the flexible screens that literally roll up to newspaper size. They really do. I mean, it's quite amazing.
So are we going to see like a Minority Report type newspaper at some point?
Yeah, for sure.
You're literally...
though they've had this in development for a while, so one of the questions is how long does it take for a true commercial deployment? They also had, in the OLED, it was an extraordinary picture. If in other kinds of TVs, even when the screen is black, there's a certain amount of current that goes through the screen, and so the black level isn't a perfect black, right? It's as black as they can get it. In the OLED that LG shows, there's no excitation of the pixels prior to the picture going through. So the black level is absolute black. And then when you darken the room, oh, and by the way, the screens are literally a finger thick. It's extraordinary. They're finger thick. When you darken the room, the edges completely disappear, and there's nothing but the image itself in extraordinary clarity. And I just refurnished my apartment in New York 2 months ago, and it's going to cost me.
Let me teach you something. You want to be on the cusp of innovation. Never buy anything.
Yeah.
You will be up to date.
The rental economy.
Actually, funny you should say that, because actually some of the things that there was a lot of talking at CES about was the same thing. There are a lot of car services now where you don't buy a car anymore. Yeah. You just have a car, and I'm not talking just about Uber, which we all know, and I live off of. Even when I'm in LA, I don't own a car, but there are car services that everything's shared devices, everything's shared equipment, and again, CES has become over the last couple of years as much or more about the software that's going to help you manage it as it is about the hardware itself. And that gatekeeper, because now you just have infinite amounts of content to watch. You have infinite amounts of shows to watch. You could be interacting with the AR VR argument that I liked the most was VR. You're by yourself. You can only do one thing. We all know that no one likes to single task anymore, right? Everyone wants to multitask, right? And I refuse to call it multitasking, because then people count screen hours as doubling up. It's switch tasking. You pay attention to the screen, then you look down to this screen, then you look back to that screen, and AR would allow that, and VR wouldn't in some ways, and so that theme kept getting hit on.
So it's interesting to me. I don't understand how the numbers work out for television, in that not everybody replaces your TV every day.
Yeah, let me go there for a second. That's the other thing. So beautiful screen, LG, want one. Two things. One, not sure you need, how many people really need an 8K or a 4K. I mean, the picture's pretty good now.
It's not about needing, it's about having.
Not sure. And then there was, I'm going to forget the company, but it was a Chinese company that they were the first time I saw them. I don't know if it was the first year, but they had a 4K 55-inch screen, I believe, a 4K 5-inch screen, $399. Nobody can make. I don't believe it's possible for anybody to make money at that price, right? And it'll just bring the market down. And
So what does that mean for us? Are we now going to have TV companies? Everyone's going to have a video service, so that's how they're going to make.
Well,
money?
I think it goes to Joe's point that it's going to be the battle's going to be elsewhere, right? It's not going to be for the physical screen, and the hardware itself is going to be. Is that a gateway to other services and so on that whoever provides the screen has some control over, or some other way? But I do think it moves to a software service and services battle.
Did you guys think that the television? There was a time when TVs were a dumb screen in the last 10, 12 years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the TVs got connected. Do you think that the Sonys, the Samsungs have lost their moment to actually come up with a service that would be mass market?
Yes.
Well, it's not going to happen for them.
I mean, it's like, but isn't it like, I mean, look, I went shopping, as a gift for a TV, and I did. I looked, okay, this Sony has the Amazon Fire, this Samsung is running, its own, this one is running, and I was looking at as much about what they're running because the price difference.
And were
was
they
about
different? Were they running different?
Oh, they were running different apps. No. See, that's the interesting part because the app ecosystem. We could probably look at what's happening in Android and Microsoft and iOS as the app problem, which is people don't want to make apps for everything. Like we know as Fox in the television business, we're like, okay, if we want to put out a Fox Now app, we have to make it for X and we have to make it for Y. Are we going to make it for X, Y, and Z? Are we going to make it for X, Y, Z, and Z1? And there's a point where you stop. And when you don't, you say, we'll make it for that when the platform gets big enough, but then the platform doesn't get big enough. How long did Uber take to build secondary? Right now, Android already has to deal with being 6 months behind on some app launches. So I think TV is going to face the same thing. Like there's no doubt in my mind. The only argument I have next is, though, I don't believe the app architecture of I will go into Netflix, then I'll come back out of Netflix, then I'll go into Hulu, and then I'll come back out of Hulu, then I'll go into the Fox Now app, and I'll come back out, and then I'll go into FX. It's just there's no way a consumer.
But then you go into the
authenticated. It's just
so TV companies up until now have really made it so that their app layer is not the cable layer. So when you're watching cable, you have to now take the remote that you never touched the minute it comes out of the box and actually go to a different screen to get the apps. They haven't thought about the basically the synchronization, so that an app and a channel are not different.
Right. Well, and Apple has wanted to do this. They've been unable to get the rights to do it, and it's about who owns that input zero.
Yep.
But someone will do it. I mean, it's so clearly the experience, right? Like I should be able to boot and find something in Netflix along with.
Yeah.
I mean, Comcast, to its credit, and Xfinity, you can search within all these apps.
TiVo, which you'll see some stuff today. I mean, I think one of the great things that they do is they're not a service, so to speak, in terms of programming. They are integrating a cable program or whatever. But what they have done really brilliantly is integrate the other services where you're getting video from. So obviously it doesn't do it with Apple TV, but it integrates Hulu, it integrates Netflix.
It's still a little kludgy, right? And I think you're still.
It's a guide, though.
No, and it's not just kludgy. I mean, this is the like. I would argue that those are not just channels because like the way Hulu organizes information is different than the way Netflix organizes information. And right now you have some cutting edge in certain areas that are using multiple ones of those. How many different information architectures do you think like a normal person is gonna go through? Like it's not like the programming guide where if I go to any channel right now, it's gonna behave the same way.
Sure.
So I do think there needs to be one layer up, which is like what is the new programming guide? And believe me, I want to see it. Like one thing I've been thinking a lot about is like in the development world, you toss it out, you say, here's APIs. You can build on top of my platform, since we've been using the word build it. What if content was the platform? What if it was like, great, here's all the content. Build on top of it the best way to watch it.
So Spotify has done that. They got rid of their app platform. I've always thought that Comcast went out and did what no one wants to do, which is license content from everybody, which is not a fun job. And yet their operating system, their cable system, even though Xfinity's okay, it isn't great. But yet Apple and Android are still fighting for the television. Even though TV's not so hot. And then the two bigger announcements, or the two bigger keynotes out of CES were Netflix and YouTube. What do you think? What'd they say?
Well, Netflix big one was global. We're going to be everywhere.
130 countries.
Just, I think fantastic. I mean, look, great for Netflix, great for distribution. I do have questions as to content. Can content be good globally? Can you have love stories and drama?
I mean, because they can get so micro niche.
Well, but then you have cost of I mean, like they're making shows that are supposed to play globally.
But I'll say this: Netflix does not compete like a regular television network. Netflix is not saying at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night we're going to make a bet on this show and that's going to have this earning potential. If it doesn't hit, that's a loss for us. They could do 50 shows a year, 60 shows a year, and if 2 or 3 hit, from the marketing lift that gives the entire service, that is the economics for them. They're in a different game than television.
They need some hits, but they don't need everything.
They don't need everything.
Yeah.
Well, and they're also making pretty much an unprecedented commitment to their own making their own programs so that they can go global. They don't have to play the rights game.
Well, usually when you insult the #1 buyer of your programming, the turn is to actually go against them. So I think we could start to thank Jeff Bewkes for the Netflix assault on the television industry, which happened many years ago. I want to get to some questions, but one of the things that I was really, from a distance, questioning was everyone was talking about Snapchat at CES. What was Snapchat doing at CES? Was it a big presence or was it integration? Like, what was going on with Snapchat there?
I think it's more, well, we saw some billboards, right? So that was
took over the Luxor.
Yeah.
Like literally the entire pyramid or something like that.
There's a joke about I could tell you what happened with Snapchat, but it disappeared. But
That's
Yeah.
very funny.
Thanks.
What I picked
Fine,
up,
fine. You should have brought me another beer and stopped groaning at my
That's why
jokes.
Fox doesn't have a comedy channel.
I was just going to say,
But it does have Empire. Did Joe mention that?
Yeah, 2.
Sorry. So keep going.
no, I don't have anything fascinating to say, but beyond a sort of befuddlement, I think, that people feel with it. You know, everyone, again, if you're a content owner, you're looking for a new platform. You don't want to miss out on a platform that, even if you don't understand it, you think could be big. And so I think we're seeing the sort of land grab, you know, the obsession with it, and still a lot of questions. I will say, as someone who's sort of reluctantly using it more, I think around video and storytelling, it's incredibly compelling. I think it can do for short user-generated video what YouTube did back in the day, and I think that's very exciting.
So television companies need to think differently about it. It's not going to be just putting their content.
Yeah,
on
and it may not work for television companies. I mean, like sometimes it doesn't, and it will
You-
be a new breed of creators, or
Sure.
I think it,
you know, if horizontal like a TV screen versus vertical, right? Portrait versus landscape. 10x the viewing on Snapchat videos that are in the portrait mode, right? 10x the viewing. So I mean, people are just not even going to do that, right? That's how lazy we are going forward in the future, right? We're not even going to do that. You know, it's got to be this.
But David, I think.
Oh, can I just make one? Yeah, but Snapchat, 2 things at the show. One is they either put out or they got out that 7 billion video views a month, basically parity with what YouTube reports.
but they
what
don't
Facebook
define what
reports.
a video
But
view
I was going to
is,
say,
which is a very
all of
important
which
point.
is generous to
Yeah,
everyone.
I mean, these
everyone.
numbers, do not believe them. Just don't believe them.
But the point is, they're
Wow, I really agree with that. I thought I was
She's
going
a
to say that.
journalist.
That's amazing.
No.
Skepticism for a reason.
Joe, he's a video guy. He
making a
believes
different
me.
point. Different point.
Unless they're Joe's video.
I think I'm making a different point, which is I think there were 3 people battling for the video platform.
Yep.
Right. They're now at sort of parity for what they're each trying to do. Right, and that's a big game. The second is that Snapchat was really pushing it with advertisers at the show, and that's another interesting development of CES. We've talked a lot about the hardware and some of the implications of that. It's a marketing show now. There are really 2 marketing events in the world. You know, there's Cannes in the summer, and there's CES. I mean, there's a party for those that go on Wednesday night, Media Link party. Everybody knows it. If you're there. There's probably 3/4 of the world's advertising represented in that room at that time. It's extraordinary.
I mean, over the 15 years that I've been going, it really was a consumer electronics show. Then slowly it became something around cable ecosystem. You would hear announcements from DirecTV and EchoStar and other places. Then I think you saw some of the media companies coming in the early 2000s, Leslie Moonves, Judy McGrath, and others. Now it really is about software. It really is about platforms. It's about integration, and the hardware itself is almost a medium.
Right.
It's sort of immaterial. Before we go to questions, the last thing I just want to bring up that a lot of people talked about were connected cars. So there's always been a hall at CES that featured cars. There would be the new stereo. It really started with how many LED lights could you get on your car and how crazy are the stereos. But obviously now you're seeing electric cars are a big deal. The Chevy Bolt was announced, which I think is a 200-mile radius car and a $30,000 price point, which is game-changing, and I'm sure Tesla will have a reaction to that on the pricing level, and certainly software. And something to leave you with to think about in terms of cars, are we thinking about cars that have software in them, or are we thinking really about computer systems or operating systems that take you places? And it'll be very interesting as to see who answers that question that way in terms of who will be the winners. Because as we've seen in this new economy, certainly the digital economy, the incumbents in the real world didn't really win. And we've heard comments today from the head of Ford saying we're not worried about Apple, we're not worried about all these other companies.
They're worried.
But they should be. So
but the thing is, if they are platforms, like I think Ford and GM, and they're all smart in thinking about we should be working with Google and Apple for our software systems at some level. Because if cars become autonomous, which I fully believe they will, which will be great, because as a true New Yorker, my license expired like 2 years ago, so I can't wait for autonomous cars. But if cars truly become autonomous, then you have to trust the software. And if you were going to trust software to take you on a highway at 65 miles an hour, tell me who you would like to make that software. Because I've got a couple of votes, and there's actually only about 2. So, and I mean, like, if you go inside of the Tesla right now, you're going to see Google Maps as the loaded up map system.
And therein lies the weird thing, which is you buy cars for color, you buy them for speed, you buy them for look. And will those things even mean anything in the world? Will cars become the dumb screen?
Oh no, I still like my computer to look good, but it's number 2. It's the second.
We're going to talk about that afterwards.
So Joe, who's the second one? You trust your cable company, and who else too?
Yeah. I can't.
Let's jump out to questions. We went a little over,
which
which I do every year. It's a pastime for me.
Yeah.
Based on what you saw at, we have a microphone? Great. Okay.
It's a large room.
Thank you. Based upon what you saw at CES, where are we going with devices that make the TV set smart, like Roku, Apple TV, Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Smart Stick, and could one of those avenues be virtual reality on the television set? Apple TV right now has an app called Little Star that's based in New York where you can see virtual reality programming on the set. You don't need headgear, you don't need goggles, you don't need Google Cardboard or glasses or helmets, and all you need is Siri and the Apple TV 2.0 remote. So where are we going with all these smart devices?
Can I say last year, so if you look at the best of CES last year, Sling was on there, right? The app.
And they won an award.
And they won for best of CES last year. This year, and Chromecast came out last year, or not last year, but was in the past years. This year, you didn't see. Everyone was like, okay, they're all kind of at parity. There's the apps on it.
It'll be interesting to see whether or not those things get integrated into the sets, though. Will Apple ever license AirPlay?
I think they. I mean, look, I think everyone's waiting for the phone to be the thing that connects to the television, right? Because once the phone connects to the television, and that's why it's interesting, because Samsung has the hardware. They would have the hardware for the TV and the hardware for the phone, but Android has the software for the phone and
software for the TV. Who here uses an app on their on their tablet or their phone to control their television at home? I'm curious. Oh. So it's still a small number comparatively. I mean, I haven't touched my cable remote or TV remote in a year. I mean, I use the phone for everything. These technologies, how do you see virtual reality without having goggles on?
Well, the way Apple is doing it through this company called Little Star is that you see the programming on the set, you use the small Apple remote, and you use Siri, which is part of Apple TV 2. We're talking about Apple TV 2.0, which was introduced in October. Tim Cook saying the future of TV is apps. They've got like now 3,000, 4,000 apps. And by the way, Apple had a developer day here in New York on Apple TV earlier today. But you also have situations like TouchJet Wave, which is a way to put smartphone tablet apps on your television set, and you touch the screen, or you use your smartphone tablet to control what you do.
Sure. I literally think the television is just going to be a different version of the phone. You're going to be shooting stuff from your phone. I really look at my nieces and nephews as the bellwether rather than research or anything else. And TV is really a third decision for them at this point. It is, they are on YouTube, they're on tablets, they're on phones, they're watching stuff. We may find it mindless, but it's happening. Then it's Minecraft, and then television if they're allowed to stay up later.
Well, but part of it is the TV, what we call a TV, the biggest use of the TV is not TV going forward.
It's just an on-ramp for video from another place in many cases. Question over here.
That was pretty much a perfect transition. We all go into CES with like the blind man and the elephant. We all go in sort of looking for what we work with. A word I've barely heard mentioned until just now is kids. And I think there are three things that were at CES this year that are seminal for kids. One, VR. We've held back on introducing VR for kids because of worries about health. Those are disappearing, and especially with the advent of cardboard, which kids love for education.
Sure.
Voice control, perfect for preschoolers. If they can say, I want to watch Dora, and it pops up, that's ideal for them. And YouTube is kids' Google right now.
Yeah. My niece has been using Siri, their own version of Siri, which is telling me what to change the channel to.
Right.
For 4 or 5 years.
So I just wanted to raise those as focus on kids, because they are the coming audience.
Absolutely, and they're absolutely setting the direction. I'm 44 years old now and starting to realize I'm getting older, and it's unbelievable to me when I watch my nieces and nephews what they innately know how to do with programming, but also like my assumptions, the Disneys, the Nickelodeons, all those brands that I grew up with, all those brands that are still very powerful, just how slowly there are just other brands being introduced. I think it's like nothing we've seen in the last many years.
I want to argue the not kids as bellwethers, like, right? It's so funny. I end up a lot of these conversations, and I end up sounding like the old man saying, "Get off my digital lawn." But like kids grow up. Like, I mean, people say, "Oh, kids don't have attention spans anymore. We need shorter forms of content." Like the Hunger Games series and the Harry Potter books, and watch them play Minecraft and forget to eat for 8 hours. So it's not that; it's that storytelling changes a little bit. The YouTube thing it's easy to access. I mean, logging into TV everywhere is not easy to access. If it's like that allegory of the cave where all you can see is shadows and then you walk out into the light. Like right now, the things that are easiest to get access to are the things that go on, and then we overanalyze it and say that's what they want. It must be they want. We like to call a word authentic. Well, what they really want is authentic.
You're in a television company, to your point. The idea that you have to go in. I use Apple TV more than I use my cable TV now. Mm-hmm. Because why tape something if I know it's going to be on HBO Go or Showtime anytime? But the idea that a user has to authenticate every single service, go to a website, authenticate it with a code, and come back for every app. Yep. The TV industry is screwing itself.
Yes. Yeah,
because the idea of what television is, television right now to me is where a lot of great programming emanates from.
Agreed.
Netflix is changing that. Hulu's going to try to make a game. You got to make it easy. You're at Fox now. Make it easy.
But that's a business model problem, not a technology problem.
Yeah. Sure. And I think what people have figured that out. People have figured out that a lot of this now is business model problems, not technology, and it pisses them off, right?
And user, but I think that we keep skipping over the user experience problem. Like everyone, look, Netflix is great. I use it all the time. I watch all of the shows that come out of it, but I watch a lot of television, not as much as this guy. But the problem is there is diminishing returns over time. As content keeps stacking in there, you need search, right? And so one thing I got a chance to ask Sundar at the show, who's the CEO of Google, was, okay, Google has a mission statement that says we want to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That is a fantastic statement. Do you think entertainment is information? So when you say, Siri, what should I watch tonight? What should come back? I mean, how is it decided? There's no programming guide, and search isn't the right thing.
Those are fundamental issues, though, inside of a Google, where the idea of having something not be fully democratic versus, when it comes time to make money, television people aren't that stupid. I mean, they program stuff, they put it on the schedule, people come in and watch, and it does okay.
But I guess the question, I truly still have this. I go to CES, I've gone for many years now waiting for who's going to sort through. Because last year at the upfronts, Hulu's big announcement was that Seinfeld was now available on Hulu. That wasn't a new show. That was a hit. We have the whole history of human creation of content. How do we sift through it? Is it going to be search? Because whoever figures out how we sift through it gets to decide the ad model.
I think that's another place where television company
go in the opposite direction, right? I think whoever is going to get the content to provide the experience is going to have a business model that allows them to get the content. Because media companies are going to go where the best business model is.
One more question before we go? Before I get killed?
Oh, boy.
Scott Kernan.
Tough to deny.
And he's got a white wine in it, so I'm looking for a good one.
So I'm just looking for clarity because I think we can agree, everyone on the panel and in the room, we could announce today that televisions are just dumb terminals forevermore, and the thing in your pocket is your cable box, it is your connection to the outside world, it is the thing you take from one dumb screen to another dumb screen. Can you guys just say big screens are dumb screens forevermore, and Samsung has to win it in the pocket, and they're not gonna, it's not possible to win it on the big screen? Can we have?
I would say that.
I would say it.
Can we have that universally
Samsung would say that
from
too.
everybody
I
in the
mean,
room
I don't know.
and save a lot of money for a lot of
Well,
big
To
companies?
John's point,
Korea would say that.
Samsung is also the biggest handset manufacturer
I get
if not
that,
in
and
the
so
world.
they're
The
hedging
difference
bets.
is that they don't have their own real OS yet, and that's a real issue.
I
for
guess
them.
I'm just looking to bury the entire argument once and for all that the big screen can be
Will have its
the
own
smart
operating system.
screen
Yes.
because it can't be.
I think the dream.
buried.
I think the dream for the consumer would be that you can walk into anyone's home, including your own, and put any piece of media you have against any device, assuming it's audio to audio or video to video or audio and video, and it not be an issue. It should just work. And you have, and the problem with that is that you have platform software, you have licensing deals at cable companies, who gets the content. Those are all getting in the way of what the utopia is.
Right.
Why people bring up Roku and other things, when you look at alternative MSOs or MVPDs, alternative systems that don't have the same content issues, rights issues, and may have their own, you may be able to see the holy grail of that work in those machines, but without the content that everybody wants right now. But I think it happens.
Yeah, it's funny. It'd be funny if we could hear this conversation 50 years from now and see if we were as far off as the guy was.
Joe Marchese
Someday
coming
they're
in,
going to do
like,
this.
You know, look at this dumb screen. You know, like,
Missed that one.
We see the future because in Star Trek they don't watch TV. So.
Good point.
Well, we're going to leave you now. John's going to
gonna
bring
stay,
up some of the cool demos, and then you guys will go downstairs and see more of the toys. Thanks for coming.